for hopping into the Traction Lab weekly office hours, your startup reality check. So I'll be going solo, at least for a portion of it today. JDM is going to be running a academy at Aggie Square, so he might pop in a bit, but for today you'll be getting the Q&A from myself. Again, our structure as always is we do have some pre-submitted questions, so thank you to you founders that pre-submitted those questions. Always keeps us rocking and rolling here on our weekly sessions. Additionally, we love to prioritize the live ones, so if you're hopping on here, we would love to make sure we're answering your questions live. And maybe get a few people hopping on in to be sharing a little bit. Again, the Traction Lab investment readiness engine is rocking and rolling, so in terms of the applications being live, again, that's a 9-month-long program here to support you in getting to your next major fundraising milestone. We do that through a systematic acquisition of customers, so helping you build that growth engine and then translating that traction narrative into your investment pitch. And not only just in the sense of like developing your pitch, but really tying that to your next major fundraising milestone and how you're going to get to that next major proof point. Additionally, we are accepting teams into our next cohort of the Traction Lab Venture School. So if you want to join the Traction Lab community and engage in our 8 framework sessions, that's a great place to plug in. You might be wondering where to check all of that out. I'm going to drop a link in the chat here. So that's our tractionlab.io. So feel free to check that out. But would love for you all to hop in there and plug in. So we do promise to anyone that applies for the investment readiness engine, we'll provide some feedback and have a conversation to support you in that process. So with that, I think we can begin our Q&A portion. So looks like JDM, I filibustered long enough for J Dooms to hop on in. So JDM, how we doing today?
Pretty good. Nothing new to report.
So very good. Well, hope all is well at Aggie Square, and I'll be seeing you in a bit. But we had some pre-submitted questions, so shout out to those that need the support and are asking for it. And then we'll see if anyone has those questions live. But if you're ready to hop into those questions, I can read them out and rock and roll.
Yeah, let's do it. Did you warm up the chat?
I warmed it up by, selfishly plugging the Traction Lab investment readiness engine and the venture school. But I do think, on tradition, we do need to get a proper warm up. So maybe I can just say, we would love to see what questions you have out there.
Yes, always best to do it nice and fresh right here with the real thing, because algorithm.
Let's get it.
I like how you're showing everybody how the sausage is made right now. This is the boring part.
No, this is like the very on par for the Traction Lab. So, we're very
polished. I don't know what you mean.
We build in public and we do all the things. So it's not about all the, edit and AI in terms of our facade face. It's, let's rock and roll.
We build in public and we fail in public. And if that's a reference that's lost on anybody, check out the podcast.
Ooh, well, is that a great plug for me to go find it in a second here? But with that let's hop into our first question. We have a few people on. They might be timid to ask their questions. So maybe let's rock and roll with what some of the other founders are maybe dabbling with here. So I'll hop in. The business that we have ahead of us, it's a two-sided consumer marketplace. The pitch is it's a peer-to-peer marketplace for renting specialized camera and film gear from local owners. So seems on par for maybe JDM, less myself. He usually has the much clearer picture and camera setup, but obviously on the road today. But the scenario here is the founder spent 4 months recruiting supply and has 240 listings across the region. They say they have a polished app and zero completed rentals. And so this founder has 15K of budget left and wants to pour it into demand side ads. Their question is, which ad channel should I test first, Instagram or Google? I think they should do
Mm-mm.
Yahoo ads.
Yeah, it definitely Yahoo ads for sure. Maybe I heard Ask Jeeves just closed down recently. Otherwise, I would have suggested putting the ads on Ask Jeeves. Um, I guess I'll say, please don't
Yeah,
do that.
yeah,
Please don't run ads.
no,
Like the big problem that we have right here is that you're building a marketplace, and a marketplace requires what we call liquidity, which means that you have to get both sides of the market to a place where they can actually have a transaction successfully completed between the two parties. All a marketplace ever does is facilitate and make easier a transaction that would have already happened. So if you think about an online marketplace to sell a car, like the two people want to buy and sell a car respectively, and they're going to do it either way, and all we're doing is making it easier, which can make it cheaper and deliver a bunch of other value on the way. But the transaction is something that they already wanted to happen. The marketplace isn't manifesting the transactions, it's just facilitating them together. And so the same thing is going to apply here, but the problem is you only took one side of the market and the whole other side is just completely ignored. And so we're looking at like, okay, well, we went and built up one side of it, and now we want to try with our remaining $15,000 to, I guess, throw a dart at the dartboard and hope that our ads work and that they drive the people to the site, which is risky enough. But we're not even stopping there, because now we're saying that we need to see if the dart happens to get even narrower into the tiniest little part of the center of the black center of it, hoping that those people actually want to transact with the people that you already got on the other side of the market. So um, side seeding, which is when you get one side of the market before you fill out the rest, like that can be a successful strategy, but not if you're just buying everything and you have no strategy whatsoever for the other side. A side seeding strategy is when you know what both sides are, but it's easier to get one side and have them wait than it is to get both. And like this is like the classic example of somebody who's looking to buy something off eBay, or maybe they're looking to buy a car, and so they go online and they look for the thing they want to buy and it's not there. What do? They leave. They're done. They're going to go look someplace else. Whereas if you go to list your car or list your product, the expectation isn't that the moment you list it, it sells. You're expecting to wait a little bit so you can seed that side of the market before you go get the other side, to make sure that you don't disappoint one side. But that's with full knowledge in advance. And this sounds like a guess and check strategy. And for that reason, I'm out.
very good.
Was
I
that
think
too feisty?
No, I think it's equally as on par as us showing how the sausage is made prior. So, but I don't have too much to add here. I think the thing I would maybe look at is if you have 15K budget, that you're allocating towards this, is like, don't just go and do one big swing. It's how can you go test those channels cheaply and efficiently to learn if that drives the demand side there. And then, I think one of the things is it's not just purely getting people to the platform, it's getting the right people to the platform that want to transact on the platform. And so it's not like, let's go get 1,000 people to get their eyeballs on here if they're not interested in buying cameras. It's not going to ultimately pan out for you. So I think that's the big thing that we need to focus on, is narrowing. Again, I think we've had some clarity on who our persona is for the supply side, and we've been able to get them to put their inventory on there. So like, great job. But now we have to figure out who is that other audience. Is it people that are going on trips? Is it people that are wanting to film their kids playing sports, right? Those are very different people that you're targeting, and very different search criteria that they would be searching into Google, or different groups they would be a part of on Instagram or whatever that might be. And so that's where we want to narrow again and understand what our assumptions are related to that. And then how can we go run a cheap experiment to see if that drives activity, that being transactions on the site. That's the aim and the goal. So cool.
Well said.
Um, Well, thank you. I'll take it. So we did get a live one. We have a live one on the hook. Oh, look, you already pulled it up there. So thank you, Zach, for joining us and being here. So the question you have for us is, what's the biggest mistake you see early stage founders make right now when trying to build a sales pipeline? Ooh, you had it on the hook, JD. And where are you gonna reel it in or?
Well, I think the biggest mistake that I see founders make when trying to build a sales pipeline is not building a sales pipeline in the first place. So I think it would be remiss if we didn't mention that one. But I would say I think that the biggest mistake that I see early stage founders making when trying to build a sales pipeline is trying to build for the eventual pipeline they think that they'll need when they'll scale, as
Mhm.
opposed to the pipeline that they need right now. And so you can get a lot of things that might look like they're potential deals, a lot of logos coming through, but they're all these big, vague, maybes. So like that's one version of that. Another version of, because they were never, they're early adopters, so they weren't going to buy right now anyway. And then the other probably more common version is like, well, we want to build out the sales pipeline, so we need all the systems to run it. So we're going to hire people to do all the sales, and we're going to build out these sales playbooks, and we're going to figure out how to handle objections and do all of that, which I think is just completely counterproductive at this stage. We actually don't know how to do that well, and anything that we come up with is probably wrong, and so we're just wasting time to learn that we're wrong. I think we can learn that we're wrong a lot faster than that by just not doing it. I think one last thing that I would say, I know you said that the biggest mistake is asking for one, but you can't do that with somebody like me. And so I think the other biggest mistake that I see a lot is in trying to treat the pipeline as a place to park theoreticals. And so
Theater.
it's theater, right? And so it's like it's pipeline theater, right? And so you end up filling it up
Pipeline
with all
theater.
stuff.
That's a new
Pipeline
one for us.
theaters. That's I smell a podcast episode in there. That's what it smells like. But it's like if you want to build a sales pipeline, the whole point is that it's a pipeline, right? That people follow from step A, B, C, D until they actually sell at the end. So, you know, if you can't move them along the pipeline, it doesn't matter. And then it's like, well, we've got all this, we got $100 million in our pipeline right now. And it's like,
Right.
but do you though?
Right. So I think the two things I would add is to that last point is like having a realistic like check on what they are building the pipeline around and like what they're considering in the pipeline. So are they actually truly highly qualified potential customers, or are they just someone that said they're interested, come back when you build it, right? They had a conversation with a VP at a Fortune 500 company, and they said, "Hey, if you go build it, come back and we would be interested." And then they're like putting that as a potential sale in the pipeline, and it's not really a realistic path of that being a true customer because we don't have any intent actually shown. They've just said, "Oh yeah, you go build it, and we'll have a conversation and see if it actually creates value." Versus that actually being pushed into maybe an LOI that's more significant of saying that's a potential sale in the pipeline for, again, dependent on how you structure that artifact, that being the LOI, is, did you have terms set into it of how many seats were going to be used or what the price point is? And that would then give you a stronger dictation of what the pipeline is. And then I think the second point I would focus on is first starting like giving yourself the permission to scale, meaning like don't just go build this massive pipeline in the sense of like it has no clarity on how you're actually going to grow and scale versus it being, we want to understand who our customer is that has an urgent and severe pain point. And that might, we might not be able to find a huge pipeline of them, but if we can understand how we efficiently get in front of them and close those deals, then we can say, oh, well, how do we then target that to be more repeatable to start to fill that pipeline? And so I think oftentimes that's where that pipeline theater comes in, is they are trying to pitch to some investor and say, hey, we have all these potential deals. But when you like actually interrogate that pipeline, you're like, none of those are actually potential paying customers, or at least you've had one conversation with one, and the probability of that one is already limited, and then now you're stacking logos behind that versus it being like, hey, I actually have 4 paying customers or 4 LOIs. Here's how this pipeline mirrors this future growth of what we're looking for. So that's where I'd highlight that.
So I think I might have biased us like down a particular path. So we're saying early stage founders without like really saying where that is, and then sales pipeline kind of relative to that. And so I think we both, I know I at least made the assumption is that we were like talking about somebody who should rightfully have a sales pipeline. But I actually think if I just from a numbers perspective, the biggest mistake that I see early stage founders make is building a sales pipeline when they need a discovery pipeline. Right. So I think that's probably the biggest thing, right? Most startups, like it's a funnel until like you get a successful exit. So there are far more startups at the beginning of the funnel than there are at the end. And so I just see far more founders trying to build sales around something that they haven't learned what it is yet. And until you learn what it is that you're trying to sell, there is no point in trying to sell it. That doesn't mean you can't actually like make a transaction. I don't mean that. I just mean that we're going through the process of learning. So instead of saying like, oh, well, we're getting this objection from this customer. Now, how do we figure out how to get around that objection with the customers? Like, what is that objection actually pointing to? And is that a true sales objection? Or is this actually them saying that there's a miss in product market fit?
So maybe a question to you, JDM. We've tackled this from like when we see or hear early stage, we think probably much earlier, like pre-seed stage company. When we're talking about that, say, discovery pipeline, how would you think about it if they're actually referring to, say, early stage as a seed or series, like getting into Series A level? Like, what would be some of the mistakes you see at that level and trying to build sales pipeline where maybe it's a little more not sophisticated, but they're a little further along, and so they're actually right sized for a sales pipeline, but maybe they're not taking the right steps?
Yeah, I would say that the game changes a lot then, right? It just does. And so one of the things that kind of that comes to mind for me is what we usually call like the founder arc.
Mm-hmm.
And so like that's our Traction Lab language for going from a task or a specialty within a startup being founder only to founder led to founder less. And sales is the common one where it should be founder only all the way at the beginning. And at some point you get a little help. And at some point it becomes hands off because it's so predictable and repeatable. And when we're getting into like that Series A stage is when we're making that hard transition. And so you might be founder only at that point and you're raising a Series A to get to founder led, or you might be founder led and you're raising to get to founder less, but we're not staying in that mode, in that same mode that we were before, because that's why we're injecting a lot of capitals to do the growth. And so the biggest mistake that I see there is making that call wrong about like, we don't have the evidence for what we're trying to do here. And yet we're going to go raise a bunch of money to actually say that what worked with me as a founder talking one-on-one with other business leaders is suddenly going to work if I check it at a sales guy. Like the people who get a call from the CEO of a startup are going to react very differently when that call comes from a guy who is director of sales.
For sure. Cool. Well, Zach, if you have any follow-up questions or things in particular you want to highlight, let us know. Would love to dive in a bit deeper. So thank you for that. So with that, let's hop into our next pre-submitted question. So I think we have just a couple more. This is a CPG, so consumer packaged good, direct to consumer. The pitch is a single-serve frozen recovery smoothie cube for endurance athletes. Oh, cool. So one was
well,
for
now
you,
we've
one was
switched
for me.
back to your field than mine.
The scenario here is the founder has sold 900 units over 6 months at farmers markets and 2 local run clubs. They're selling out most weekends and have strong repeat customers. A co-packer quote requires 10,000 units minimum, and they already and this founder feels like they're ready to sign and launch a Shopify store. Their question is, should I order the 10,000 units or go to 15,000 for a price break? So what are your thoughts, J Doom? They've sold 900 units over 6 months.
Well, I guess I'm a little bit confused. Maybe I guess we should get rid of Zach's question there. How did we get from 900 to the question being 10 or 15,000?
Well, so I guess if I'm extrapolating here, it seems like they need to expand their operations to work with a co-packer, and the quote that's required is for a 10,000 unit minimum. So in order just to even uh, go to quote unquote scale, they would have to more than 10x their sales.
Okay. But the mechanism by which you sell 900 units is pretty different than the mechanism by which you sell 15,000. And so let's assume that we can take the signal that we've been selling out to mean that we can sell more. What is that cap? How many can we sell doing the same things that we already have good evidence for? Because well done, 900 sales over 6 months. But like, what is the natural ceiling we're going to hit based on the channel that we've already proven works? Because otherwise we're taking this gamble essentially that we can order a bunch of units and then find a way to sell them. And I would run some experiments to see if we can actually get in front of customers and actually get them to convert on those other channels before trying to do some large manufacturing run just to get what is a theoretically cheaper price. But a unit that doesn't sell is still pretty expensive.
Yeah, it's for sure, especially at this point because you've already purchased all of the co-packing
Right.
versus it being, you're currently selling on. So I think to add on to that was I would be curious to break apart kind of this 900 unit sales over 6 months. Like, is that growing or was it like initially big and then now has like decreased? I mean, obviously that's been more of the farmers market and then like through the run clubs versus it being this channel that we're envisioning through Shopify. And so part of it is how do we even know how to get people to our Shopify store? We don't yet know that. And so we need to run those experiments to see if we could get them to Shopify or if it's our own website going forward. So I think having a clear path to doing that. And again, I think sometimes the hesitation is like they come and pay and then you have to ship it to them. Maybe it's actually setting up a pre-order or some sort of thing where we're going to deliver on this in X period of time, and so you prove the demand and the ability to drive them to this particular destination, whether that's Shopify or your own website. And then you can actually have proven demand to say, okay, it's worth us going down the path for 10,000 units, or do we produce this ourselves or whatever that might be based on what the current demand is. Or we just are in this like gray area where, maybe we have to find a different approach. But the 10,000 leap seems like a pretty big bet. And then let alone trying to get a price break to 15,000 is a massive, I think investment for what the evidence is currently speaking to.
I think the way to make what you and I are both saying a little bit more broad is like this idea of right sizing your bets, which is something that we talk about a lot. Mm-hmm. And we talk a lot about proportioning your effort to the evidence, proportioning your bet to the evidence. And this is the exact same thing that we see that we're talking about here that you see when you're going to pitch to an investor. Because if you're going to pitch to an investor that you want, $2 million to take you to the next stage, it's the exact same bet that we're making is that $2 million can be spent in ways where we already have evidence it's going to work. Therefore, we have reason to believe that an investment makes sense. Or are we saying we want $2 million to go guess on something else, in which case we don't have evidence for what we're doing, and that makes it a very dumb bet for the investors, or at least I shouldn't say a dumb bet. It's a very speculative bet, and that's not what most investors are after. So it's the exact same calculation that we're talking about making here with our own available capital as we would be with investors. And so the more that we can get into the habit of thinking about what evidence do we have and what effort does that warrant us spending, I think the better off we're going to be.
Sorry, I'm putting a article in the chat. So
cool.
All right. So just for everyone, I think we have time for we have one more pre-submitted one. If you have a live question, we will prioritize that. So I'd love to hear your live question. So thanks those that are out there. We'll maybe hop into the pre-submitted question here. Let's do this one right here. So it's a B2B vertical SaaS. It's an inventory and roast planning software for independent coffee roasters.
Cheers.
There you go. I did send JDM a pretty cool video that I think we'll have to try. It's called the Fridge Cigarette, which is a Diet Coke, espresso, and then foam. So I think we'll have to try that out. So you're going to like it, and that's going to be That's going to
No, this
be
is like
the
this is the kind of
staple every traction lab team needs to have is a fridge cigarette to
this
get
is
through
like the
the
people who are
science.
putting Dr. Pepper in their wine. Like this is not these are not good life decisions.
I would be one of those guys. So,
It's real, guys. It's real.
alrighty. So the pitch of we already talked about the pitch. Again, it's an inventory and roast planning software for independent coffee roasters. The founder is at 9K MRR with 12 customers. Everyone traces back to one of their 8 years in specialty coffee. So, former colleagues, trade show relationships, one referral from their old boss. An advisor told them that the numbers justify a seed round to hire 2 salespeople. And the question is, how much should I raise to build the sales team? Well, the first question I would have back is, who is your advisor, and stop taking their advice. No, that's mean. That's
That was spicier than mine. But no, really, you don't have the evidence to hire anybody or raise a seed round to hire anybody. So like we could go back to like the founder arc and talk about that again, but I actually think the better thing to talk about here is what we would call the strength of evidence matrix.
Oh,
And
you know it.
am I like ahead of the game there? So it's like
No, that's
it's a
exactly what I was
graph,
thinking.
and on one axis we on I think my mic's over here. On one axis, the y-axis, we have the type of evidence that it is. So that's like, did they buy, or did they just tell us they liked it? Is all the way down at the bottom, or did they buy at the top? And then this way is actually their proximity to the founder. So all the way on this side, we have somebody that you know really well. And then all the way at this side, we have, strangers, what we call cold leads, right? And so if you're the strongest possible evidence is up here, where we get really, really strong evidence in terms of like the purchasing intent. Maybe it's revenue, maybe it's referral. And then also they're coming from a cold source. And so if you're getting everything that's like, oh, we're getting strong evidence, but only from people we know, there's no reason to think that that's going to replicate to people who don't have the social pressure to say yes. Mm-hmm. And so that's a really important thing to keep in mind. So like when we're looking for how strong is the evidence, we want it to be both cold and really robust evidence from cold sources. And what we have here is a set of customers that all came from past relationships, which means that there's a finite number of them too. At some point, we're just going to run out of people that we know. And then also, we don't have any reason to believe that a salesperson who doesn't have that relationship with somebody is going to be able to sell it cold. So why would we go spend a bunch of money seeing if we can make a cold sale? The founder, who has had the ability to sell to people you know, should try selling it to people you don't. And if you can replicate that in a founder-only way, then we can move into a founder-led way as soon as we can prove that replicates beyond the relationships that you have. I know Cameron put an article in the chat so
I put the proportioning evidence to the bet from the prior answer, and then I just threw our episode to the Traction Lab podcast on the strength of evidence matrix. The episode is how we evaluate traction, and so we literally do with founders this source audit. So one, thinking of that y-axis is really that ladder of evidence that you often hear us talk about. So how are you climbing that ladder, moving from things they say to things they actually do, and then that be the highest form of that being paying for whatever you're offering. And then what we call is like the source audit. So how proximate are they, or how connected are they to you, and to then therefore something that's cold. And ultimately that aim is to top right-hand corner. So that's kind of where we would land there. I'm trying to see if there's anything else I would, really think about. I think the last thing I would say is we think about kind of this growth engine. And I talked about it a little bit earlier, but we talk about the path to scalability starts with, first and foremost, you have to be create this predictable path to getting paying customers. And so we currently are looking at, we've used our kind of network. We've identified that all of these 8 paying customers have come from very direct connections. Well, we don't yet know how to replicate that going forward, right? It's not predictable outside of our network. And so therefore we need to go run some systematic experiments to go test our ability to actually go to market with those cold potential customers out there, and what are those efficient and effective channels that will allow us to build that repeatability, which allows us to get to scale from there. So those are the foundational things. And the last thing, this just seems pretty far off from a seed round of capital. We have some ways to go, because I, like likely the ask you would have is, oh, we're going to use this to deploy into marketing campaigns or some sort of marketing scheme that we yet to prove. Like, we don't have any evidence of how to do that outside of, if you can replicate friends that are in the coffee business, that might help, but that's not likely to happen. So that's where we would focus going forward. So I'll see if there was anything added into the chat. We will give maybe a quick filibuster. But I think, again, the last kind of shout outs was, one, thanks for hopping in and being here. Thank you to those that pre-submitted. We appreciate you doing so. Obviously makes this a little easier if we have those questions submitted versus not. So we appreciate those that do. And then thank you for the live ones. Those are always fun to react to and support. Last things, obviously we throw a lot of those resources from the Traction Lab podcast as well as our Traction Thinking articles. So be sure to subscribe to the Traction Lab Substack, and be sure to plug into that. And then additionally is keep an eye out for the Traction Lab investment readiness engine applications, as well as the venture school. So we would love for you to all plug in and get the support that you need. So with that, I think we bought ourselves enough time to get no more questions. So with that, we say thank you, everyone, for hopping in, pre-submitting those questions. Thanks, Shredder, for joining. And
Thank
any
you,
last
sir.
words from you? Or if not, we'll call it a
No,
day.